Hi there, this is Mark Idelman, speech-language pathologist, and I'm speaking to you from Hove, or Brighton, in the United Kingdom. And I'm over here on a family emergency, and I've been thinking, of course, about a special member of my family, and it seems like wherever I go, I'm reminded about the subject of aphasia. And we've connected with some organizations here in the UK who provide supportive services for those with aphasia. And so it's great. Wherever we go, there's community. But that's not really what I've wanted to share with you today. And if it's a little noisy, just know that I'm out for my walk. And of course, there's always noise here and there to deal with, so I hope that you'll be patient with me. So there's lots going on. So the first thing I want to share with you today is the subject of steps. And you say, steps? What do you mean steps? Well, I happen to be staying in a bed and breakfast here in Brighton, UK. And guess what? To get up to our room, we have to go up 3 flights of steps. And gosh, I haven't gone up flights of steps in a long time. But there are 3 flights of steps. And so you don't want to forget anything. If you're going out for the day and you're coming downstairs to go out on the street, you don't want to forget anything. Well, I forgot something the other day, and I went, oh, darn, and turned around and had to walk back up the steps again. And as that occurred, I started thinking about the steps of aphasia therapy. Now, I've been doing aphasia therapy for, gosh, I don't want to tell you, but 46 years. And believe me, it's not singing happy birthday. And believe me, it's not repeating words from an iPad. And believe me, it's not working in a workbook. But what it is, it's the process of talking. Now let's take a look at it. So if you understand that there are steps to doing everything, there's maybe you know of somebody who built model airplanes when they were a child. There were definite steps to that. When you learn the alphabet, there are definite steps. You have to get the right letter in order so that you can go all the way from A to Z. Now, the same thing occurred when you learned to count to 100. There is a sequence, there is a number of steps, there are a number of steps that you have to go through. And if you go out of sequence, or you try to get to 100 by some other way, it won't work. And the same thing goes with building model airplanes, or the same thing goes with if you're putting together a recipe for a holiday. And if you don't put the right ingredients in the right steps, then you are in trouble. It won't happen. It won't come out the way that you want it to. And that's my point. I cannot tell you that the majority of the people that I read about in Facebook or on many other online services who get aphasia therapy, some are doing really, really well. And some are trying to do it on their own. And some are trying to give each other suggestions of what to do. But if you have a profound aphasia, if you have a severe aphasia, then first of all, this is a problem that may take years. I want to tell you that, okay? Because I know, because I work intensively with people. I work intensively with caregivers, and it could take literally years. It's not a fast process. And when a speech pathologist looks at a particular speaking difficulty, he has to look, or she has to look at how the speech sounds are formed. That's one specific small area of aphasia, is just the sound system. Is the person with aphasia making the sounds correctly? Is the tongue going in the right place? Is it clear? Is it slurred? So there are many, many, many aspects of just what we call articulation, which is the formation of speech sounds. And there are some people who can speak and have intact language, but their articulation is all messed up and you can't understand what they're saying. So that's one aspect. That's only one small aspect of aphasia therapy. And it's not something, aphasia therapy is not something that an individual who doesn't really know a whole lot about speech other than maybe what they've been through, just because they've been through a certain kind of therapy, a lot of people try to share what they know, and that's good, okay? But in most cases, it doesn't apply because people with aphasia have many different symptoms. And therapy for aphasia is a very slow and sequential process. And that process, you have to go through one step, master it, one step, master it, one step, master it. And that's how it works. It's just not a quick fix. It's just a slow, sequential, step-by-step manner. Kind of like going up 3 flights of stairs in Brighton to a room that you have at the top. Now, then there's the language. Now, the language is a whole nother aspect of speaking. And what happens in many cases is that people may have problems with language. They may have difficulty comprehending language, following directions. And so one of the things that we do with people who have aphasia, and if we're not sure that they're really following directions, we have to slow the speech down and we have to simplify it and maybe even speak to them in 1 or 2 word utterances. Okay? So quite often their ability to comprehend normal speech, the speed of normal speech, is affected. And so what we need to do quite often is slow speech down, make it slower, make it simpler. And comprehension is a very important aspect of speech and language, because without the ability to comprehend, a person doesn't know what the other person is saying. And so in another case of aphasia, the language just doesn't come. Like in For instance, Broca's aphasia. Broca's aphasia is defined as a speaking difficulty where a person has difficulty initiating speech. That is, they know what they want to say, but they can't seem to get it out. It's like on the tip of their tongue, so to speak. And many of you have seen different ads for aphasia, and that's a very common thought, that it's on the tip of the tongue, but it just doesn't come out. Well, when a speech therapist looks at that, they don't go to singing or anything like that. Now, although singing, quite often, a person can recall the lyrics to songs, but that's not really speaking. That's repeating back something that's what we call rotely learned. The ability to construct speech and language takes on a whole different process than singing. It's the ability to, first of all, think about what you want to say. Then you've got to think about the words that you're going to use when you say it. Then you've got to string the words together. And then you've got to make sure that you're articulating the words correctly. So it's a very, very complicated process. And a speech pathologist who's an expert understands that complicated process and looks at that complicated process and then thinks about, what process can I help this patient with that would be easy, and where could we start that would be at the start or at the beginning? And so the speech therapist can break down all of the complexities of speech and language and can break it all down and simplify it so that the individual can start speaking immediately. Now you might say, what? Start speaking immediately? Yes, because we don't do flashcards, we don't do iPads, we don't do talking machines. Not if a person can imitate simple speaking. If a person can imitate simple speaking, we start at what they can imitate and build on that. Sometimes we have to spend maybe weeks, maybe even a month or so, or even longer sometimes, on just single words, until a person can utter single words, until a person can say single words. Now, once they can do that, then we go to the next step. Well, what's the next step? Well, it's maybe 2-syllable words, sort of like flashlight, or hot dog, or peanut butter. Okay, so you go first from a single syllable, then you go to a multi-syllable word, and then once they can do that, then you can work on 2-word utterances. And it's all steps. It's all steps, and you have to go through the steps. Sort of like going through the steps of walking up a stairway to the 3rd floor, or sort of going through the steps of learning the letters of the alphabet, or the steps of counting to 100. It's very sequential. And if you don't know how to do it, and if you don't have the experience of doing it, then if you're going to succeed, you have to find a mentor. That's all there is to it. Somebody who knows. Now, students are okay. You know, everybody says, well, they're free and all this other business, but they don't know. Hell, it took me over 10 years to figure out how to address aphasia. And even then, I was not 100%, okay? So people who practice speech pathology, people who practice helping people with aphasia, even for them, it's a step-by-step process where they have to learn really about what to do to help people with aphasia. And for many therapists, it may take them as long to feel comfortable and to develop an expertise to help people with aphasia. It may take them just as long to learn the ins and outs of aphasia therapy as it does the person who you're working with, who you want them to speak better. So it's a sequential process. It's a simple step-by-step process, and it's a process that is done with someone who's experienced, someone who has expertise. Now, if you do that and you invest your time and your effort into working with someone who knows what they're doing, then you're going to get results. And if you're fully committed. Now, I've worked with thousands of people in my career, and I can probably count maybe on two hands the people who really have made exceptional progress. And you might ask me, well, Mark, what is it about people who make exceptional process and progress? And I'll tell you, what it is about them is that they have this idea in their minds: I must speak better. It's not maybe, it's not I'll try, it's not, well, I think I can do it. It's none of that. It's the same belief. And the belief is of the care person and the individual with aphasia. Now, what is it? That belief is, I must have this and I will have it. And if you look down through history at almost every person who has achieved greatness in our society, whether it was Helen Keller, whether it was Thomas Edison, whether it was Henry Ford, whether it was Steve Jobs at Apple, whether it was Microsoft, whether it was any particular endeavor, these people had only one fixed idea in their mind, and that was, this is what I want, I must have it, and I'm not going to stop until I achieve it. And this has got to be something that not only the individual with aphasia has, but also the care partner. And the other thing I want to stress again, as I do in many of my videos, is that the care partner, the daughter or the wife or the husband, is critical in the process. Without someone at home to reinforce and to talk with that person and to stimulate speech with them all day, progress is questionable. And the progress is doubtful, because it takes an insurmountable amount of time and stimulation to get a person speaking again. And it's not easy, it's intense, and the best place to help your person with aphasia speak better is right at home. It's not at these residential 2-week programs or 3-week programs. Some of them are there for the major reason of training students, and some of them are there because they're okay, but they often do not train caregivers, and that's what sets the teaching of talking aside from all the other methods that are out there. We teach caregivers to help the individual at home, and we make sure that they learn the very simple steps and follow those steps and don't go out of those steps and stay in those steps, and we keep them on track, because quite often, things happen with people who have aphasia, and things happen with the caregivers of those with aphasia. And, many have been well-intentioned. However, there are many things that occur in life to all of us that upset the apple cart, that upset our normal routines. And sometimes when our normal routines are upset, then we may stop doing something that was very, very, very important. So one of the things about working with an expert also is that an expert will help keep you on track. There are so many things that happen in life that can sidetrack us. And if you're working with an expert who knows what they're doing and is helpful to you, you just have a tendency to stay on track, and that's what you have to do. You can't get off the track. There's something called continuity of care. And continuity of care is something very, very, very important. Continuity of care means that the care that you're getting or the care that you're giving is consistent. That means it's daily. If you're going to work with a therapist, that work is done on a consistent basis on the calendar, that you have appointments to work with that person. And when you have continuity of care and you work with the same therapist and you know that therapist and that therapist knows you, then the process continues. And it's an intensive situation. I mean, I've worked with people for a year. I've worked with people for 2 years. I've worked with the same person for 3 years. And I've worked with another person or two for 4 years. Now, why is that? Well, it's because speech was so profoundly affected at the start of care that we had to go through the sequence of speech and language, and we had to go through it step by step until it was mastered, and then we'd go on to the next item, to the next area in the developmental sequence. And remember, it follows a sequence. Speech follows a sequence. Speech sound development follows a sequence. Language, the ability to utter words, follows a sequence. And you need to know that. And you know something? The people who are trained, the caregivers who are trained to do speech and language stimulation, many of them are as good, if not better, than anybody else out there who's doing speech and language stimulation. Why is it? Because they've got lots of hours of learning and they've got lots of hours of practice. And you can learn almost anything if you have a good mentor, if you practice, and if you have a good time at it especially. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. The fact that working with aphasia, working with a person who has aphasia, especially if it's a severe aphasia, goes through a sequence of step by step. And you know something? There's no substitute for a speech pathology expert. Now, I know Carol Dow Richards, and she's got the Aphasia Recovery Connection. And her son is David, and she got expert help right away, and she went and she found the best person, Audrey Holland, and she hung out with Audrey Holland, and Audrey helped David get a return of speaking. Now, if you look at Gabby Giffords, it's the same thing. Gabby Giffords and her husband, they found the best speech pathologist, the expert in aphasia therapy. And they acquired her services, and they worked with that person, probably still are at a certain level of degree. And that's what it takes. It takes finding the best. It takes finding an expert. It takes trusting expert. It takes the investment of time and energy. And when you do that, you can't help but get results, especially if the person is stimulable. So this is Mark Idelman explaining the steps of aphasia therapy, and again, recommending to you, find a person who knows what they're doing. Just because a person has had aphasia and maybe recovered from aphasia doesn't mean that they have the answers. It means that whatever was done with them worked. But it's like a fingerprint. There are no two fingerprints that are the same. There are no two voices that are the same. There are no two people who are the same. There are no two faces that are the same. It just doesn't work that way. Every person is different. Every aphasia is different. And if you want to truly succeed and recover speaking, find an expert and give that expert the opportunity to mentor you and to help you. And when you do that, you're assured to get results. This is Mark Idelman, speech-language pathologist. If you've liked this video, please give us a thumbs up. Down below the video is my website. It also has my email address. It also has a questionnaire, so if you'd like to have a free conversation with me about your loved one, you can fill out that questionnaire and send it to me. I check them almost every day, and then I'll contact you and we can set up a conversation. Now, we also travel throughout the United States, and we travel throughout the world, and we train speech-language pathologists. We train caregivers at stroke organizations all over the country and all over the world. So we're spending this particular part of our career doing just that. And we're also, in January and February, I believe, we're going to have a 3-day intensive in Las Vegas where I'm going to start teaching you and mentoring you, meeting your loved one, evaluating your loved one, talking with your loved one, and then starting to teach you the basics, the fundamentals of what you must do to help your loved one speak better. There's no excuses. There's no confusion. There's no feeling like you don't have any power at all, because what we do is we empower you, we help you, we teach you so that you can help your loved one. And if you can't make it to Las Vegas for the intensive, then what we can do is we can set up online video consultations where I can work with you right from my computer to your computer and teach you the necessary steps in that fashion also. So this is Mark Idelman. Please remember to give us a thumbs up, and we look forward to helping you and teaching you, and of course, helping the individual with aphasia recover the ability to speak and communicate again. Okay, bye-bye now.